Before we start the video, a large thank you to Leonardo, Braun, and Hans for their support on Patreon. I hope you guys enjoy the video. And an immense thank you to Halo Burner and Ryan Bellin for their immense and continued support of the channel this month on Patreon. It is greatly appreciated, gentlemen, and I hope you enjoy the video. Hello everybody, today we're going to continue with our client side predictions. So we're going to start the video by going to our character combat manager. And I'm going to say ahead of time, I'm surrounded by my dogs right now. I'm in a different room, so if you hear background tapping, that's all it is, and I apologize. So we're going to go to we're going to make a comment here called death animation. This again is on the character combat manager. And then we're going to make a function called check for death animation. And it says if we kill the character locally before a death is verified on the network, we want to play the animation instantly. So what we're going to do is just basically check if we're being critically damaged first in return, because this is going to be the function we use to play a death animation. And we don't want to play the animation if there's already something else happening. So if I'm getting backstabbed, I'm going to go into the backstab death animation. I don't need to play the default dead animation. If I'm not dead, and I'm not dead locally, we're going to also return, me being the character at the time, that's what I'm saying that for. And if you have any heavy damage animations, so if, for example, in Neff, I have a critical or a colossal damage animation where if I get hit by an ultra sword, you get pancaked, and if you're not alive, you just don't get up. So here I would return. So Neff, if basically all my colossal animations have their own death animation, so if I'm in a colossal animation, I just don't play. So if you have any special death animations, make your rules here for them, basically. Okay, I'm going to go up to attack flags and rename this to combat flags. And I'm going to say has played death animation. By default, this is set at false. Now I'm going to come down here back under check for death animation. And we're going to say has played death animation is equal to true. So basically, after all the checks, all we want to do is go to our character animator manager, and play local animation and play our regular death animation, which in this project I believe is dead 01. Set true for his performing action, and that's basically it. Okay, now we need to call that in the proper places, so go to your character network manager, and on is dead changed. What we're going to do is, if the character is dead, we are going to basically perform this call. So if the character is dead.value, go to character.character combat manager, check for death animation. What this does is, obviously, if you're dead on the network, it's going to verify that you for sure are going to play the animation. We're going to play it locally anyway, but this is just a failsafe as well. So if you play the death animation, also return from this function. Don't run it twice. Make sure you put that there, very important. I know I was kind of quick as I was going by there. So let's go to on network spawn, and what we're going to do is we're going to say character combat manager check for death animation. We're doing this so if you join the game after the character has already been killed, then they're going to play the death animation. So now we're going to go and hop over to take damage effect, and we're going to make a private void check for death animation. And we're going to make this require a character manager character. And then what I'm going to do is basically I'm going to say in here, if the character is not dead and is not dead local, so both, if either or is passed, that's also acceptable, we're going to simply return. We don't want to run this logic unless the character is dead locally or on the network. Then we're going to say character manager check for death animation. So then we're going to call that. Now we can call this after all other things have processed on the damage step, so right at the very end here. And now this is going to be needed too for our blocking damage. So what I'm going to do is, you can see these two classes here share a lot of data. I'm actually just going to basically give it a base class, which I should have done a long time ago, but just didn't. So you could just copy and paste this functionality right here, and then call it down here like so. But again, you can see here we're sharing a lot of stuff like the damage and such. For now though, actually I will just copy and paste in the block damages from the take damage effect, and then I'll make a new base class shortly. I'm not going to translate all of the calculations to the base class immediately. That's actually something fun that you could do, because I'm going to try to get through the topic of this video first, and maybe I'll have a couple episodes where you come back and clean up a few of the scripts and make them a little bit nicer and more simplistic. But I'm going to copy and paste my damage calculation here for armor, and then down here where we're doing final damage dealt, we're actually applying the damage to the character. I'm going to make sure there's only happening once because I copied and pasted my code from the other damage function. I'm going to remove the check for is owner. And now I'm going to yoink the things that actually deal the damage here on the other take damage script. And I got my if you're the owner, otherwise we're going to fake it, and we're going to paste that here. Just like that. So we can get rid of the checks for poise, because if you're blocking, you're not taking any poise damage. You're just playing a blocking animation depending on the poise damage if you have those. So I'm just going to eradicate all of the things here that mention poise. And I'm going to get rid of the poise reset timer, and I'm going to come down here and also get rid of all that poise stuff. So that does look good. All right, I think we're fine here. I'm going to save that. And now I'm going to go over to play directional blocking animation, delete the check for the owner. And if we're dead or is dead local, we're going to return. Because also, if you've been dead locally before the network has time to process it, you don't want to play a blocking animation. And now we're going to say play local animation instantly, or play local animation, whichever you prefer. I like using it instantly for the blocking animations because it makes it feel more impactful. No blending. Now I'm going to go over to the damage colliders, and we need to modify how we actually use these. So if I go to my damage collider here, now my base class, let me explain some things. So if we go here to on trigger enter, you can see first off I'm going to take out this code, copy it, and check for null, and then simply return, so it's a bit neater. There we go, that looks nicer to me. Now I am going to come down here on damage target. Now we could put a check here, but basically what we're going to want to do is we're going to say if the damage target is not the owner, return. What does this mean? If I'm not the owner and I'm not getting hit on my screen, if the damage collider does not hit me on my screen, I'm going to return. We're not going to do anything. Otherwise, if it does hit me on my screen, we want to damage my character instantly and then send a server RPC. So you could do a check for a block as well. And now that I'm looking at it, actually, we could just use the check on trigger enter, which is probably what we're going to do. But to further articulate my point, the damage collider base class is mostly used by AI and environment. It's never used by the player. The player always has some modified version of it. So it's fair, the most fair to me. We're going to use this on trigger enter, by the way. If the AI hits me on my screen, that's fair. But if it hits me on your screen and just misses me on my screen, that doesn't feel good for me. So it's much better to favor the player here as opposed to the host. Like, always favor the local player. So we're going to step 1, play it instantly on our end. And then step 2, we want to send a server RPC. So we play it for everybody else. Now we have a server RPC right now, but we have to modify it because it's not set up the way we want it. So we're going to say damage target, character network manager. I believe I called it notify server of damage RPC, character damage RPC, yes. So let's call that, and then we're going to modify it to our needs. So what needs to be changed? Well, we need to know what client ID we played it on so we don't play it on the same one. And this is different from a character ID, a network object ID. We need the local client ID of the person sending it. So we're going to say if network manager dot singleton, this is on the client RPC version of this, by the way, dot local client ID, and you know, this is different because damage character ID, as you can see, this is going to be the object ID, which we used to get the character, so we don't want to change that. So let's go up here and add another oolong, I don't know how to pronounce that, I've just been calling it oolong, local client sending or sender ID, whatever you prefer, and we're going to compare it to that. So basically, if the local client sender ID is equal to the one that sent it, we want to return because we've already ran this locally on the damage collider side, as you've seen before. So if we are the owner, we're running it, and if we're not, and then we're sending the RPC, which then runs it on every other connected client for us. So don't process this damage step again. We already did it locally. Now add the local client sender ID variable requirement to both the client RPC, or actually just the client RPC is all we need. We don't need it on the actual function that processes the damage. So now we're going to fill out all the variables we need here, we're going to do the thing here for the local client ID. We're going to reference that by getting the damage target, that's the person getting damaged, dot owner client ID. So it's going to get the ID of the client that owns that object. And then everything else is just like business as usual. We're going to pass the damage target dot network object ID. And we need to make another alteration here though, because we need to bull check, does this damage collider contain a character causing the damage? And this is not really used in our project, but if you have multipliers, which I'm sure a lot of you have made by now, like modifiers for character-specific damage, like this character gets plus to physical damage, etc., then you need to keep track of that. But not every damage collider has a character present, because some are just environmental colliders. So we're going to defaultly set it to true, because most times it does. And then we're going to need to pass that information as well. So add that to your functions as a requirement. And I'm not going to autofill it for the client RPC, because we're always going to need it, but it will be auto-filled in the server RPC. And you can do it differently, it's just how I'm choosing to do it. And basically, if this is set to false, we're not going to attempt to look for a character causing damage. So we won't get a null reference here. We'll do a check here. We'll say if does not contain, or character causing damage is present, sorry, we're going to do the search here, like so. And if you want, you can go up here and say it's null, and then just make it look a little bit neater by getting rid of this variable, and then you can shorten up the if statement to save a line. There we go. Or a couple lines, rather. Now, I'm going to come back here to the take damage function again, or the damage target function, and we're going to just fill it out. So I'm going to put 0 there because the ID doesn't matter. Literally, there's no character causing damage present. And everything else is just the regular variables. So I might snap back in editing, I might not. If my voice cuts out, you know why. So we're going to do holy damage, poise damage, and then the angle hit from, and then the contact point. Okay, that's all good. So this is what it looks like in the end. I've cleaned up a little bit, and here's how it looks. And at the very end, after you've sent the RPC, then I'm going to process the effect. So step 1, play it instantly, or rather load out the damage effect. That's what I'll say. Step 2, send it to the server RPC to play for everyone else. And step 3, process it instantly. Now this is going to be the trend we're going to repeat across all of our AI damage colliders. It's going to be a bit different when we get to player damage colliders, and I'll explain why I do what I do, but of course you can do it differently, whichever you prefer. So for blocking, the exact same thing. I'm just going to shorthand it really quickly and move a little bit faster through editing to save some time, because we got a lot of time in this video we want to get through. And I'm going to put my steps up here, but you might have noticed we don't actually have a blocked damage server RPC. I believe I forgot to make that, or I had no reason to with the old functionality. Regardless, we don't have that right now. Or yeah, I suppose I didn't need to with the old functionality because there was always a favor to the person setting the RPC for the host. So let's make that. I'm going to copy and paste the damage RPC one and just add the keyword blocked. And this doesn't exist yet, obviously. So what we're going to do now is copy all of the logic for our notify the server of character damage RPC. Paste it right below. I copied it out of the comments so I could clearly see it, like right there. I'm going to put the comment as blocked damage instead of damage. I'm going to add the keyword blocked in front of all of the damage on these functions. And this is going to make this so much easier because this is going to function the exact same way as our damage function. Obviously, if yours is different, after years of modifying your project, you'll need to accommodate accordingly. But for the most part, it's going to be very similar. So what we're going to do is still check for the character causing damage. And instead of take damage effect, it becomes take blocked damage effect. And that's basically it. That is literally, to my knowledge, unless I'm forgetting something, all we need to do for this project. Nef is very different, so I'm kind of glancing back and forth, but I think that's it. I'm sure someone will tell me if I missed something anyway. And I'll be testing in a couple of videos, so regardless, we'll catch it. Okay, let's go over to the Dirk damage collider we got here. So Dirk Club damage collider. You might have your own boss collider, but you can see we got this old code. I'm going to just delete it. And this is going to be identical to the damage collider script we just did, with the only exception is we're going to actually fill in the character causing damage as Dirk. So it'll be identical other than that. So I'm going to copy and paste the comments here, and the boss character is going to be the character that's causing the damage. So where the 0 is, I'll put boss character.networkObjectID. And I'm going to not forget, you can set this to true or you can erase it because it autofills it true, it doesn't matter. I need to also not forget to add the boss to the actual damage effect itself. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to copy and paste the blocking first though, because it is also identical. So I'm going to take the boss character.networkObjectID, put it here in the 0, and then we're going to process the effect instantly and send the RPC. That looks good. Now I'm going to save this, jump over to the Dirk Stomp Collider, and I'm going to do the same thing. So I'm going to do a for loop instead of for each loop, and I'm going to just make this a lot neater. So you don't have to do this if you don't want to, but I just want to clean it up a bit. So I'm basically just going to go down through the for loop and copy what we have, but write it out in a nicer way. So we're going to go iterate through all these colliders, and we're going to get a character manager specifically. And if that character is null, we're going to continue instead of doing an if statement, just to make it look more concise, more neat rather. And then if you can just copy basically everything else you've had there. If the character's damage contains this character, you want to continue. And if the character manager is equal to Dirk, then you want to continue also. But we're also going to add if the character is not the owner here. So this is the most important step, as again, we only want to be damaged if it happens on our screen locally. Otherwise, it feels very unfair and unfun. So I'm going to copy everything else from here and paste it, and I'm going to delete this for each loop, and things are going to get a little bit different here now. I'm realizing I shouldn't have added the character to the damage list right there, because otherwise it's never actually going to take the damage if I call the damage and block checks. So I'll modify that in a bit. I'm also going to set the physical damage up here on the stomp attack and the poise damage. Not sure why I was doing it down there before, but I'll just do it here, because then we can delete this and we can just simply call, let's get rid of that owner check too. We can simply call check for block, and then we can call damage character, or what is it called? It's not called check for damage. I probably should say check for damage, because if you are already blocking, you're not going to damage the target. But I won't change the name for now. So if we're invulnerable, let's do it. If we're not invulnerable, attempt to damage the target. And let's go over to the fireball damage collider. And we're going to do, so here's where it's going to get a little bit different. Maybe I'll come back to this. So I like favoring the caster in terms of spell casting. But you can still favor the player if you want to, the local player. But I find it feels really bad if you throw a fireball and then it so obviously hits the character you're trying to hit, but it doesn't on the other person's screen. And I find this feels bad mostly for player to AI if you're lagging. For player to player, it does feel bad if you get hit by a fireball that wasn't even anywhere near you. But I'm thinking of the experience when you're playing co-op, and that's why I'm choosing to favor the caster. So instead of checking for the damage target being the owner now, we're going to check for the spellcaster being the owner. And you don't have to do it this way. It's entirely up to you. If you're PvP focused, you might want to still do it the other way. But like, I'm thinking of if you're playing with me and you're in, I don't know, France, and I'm in Canada where I reside right now, and you hit a lag spike and you're a client and you throw a fireball. If on my screen the fireball for some reason misses the undead by like 5 feet, but on your screen it hits them square in the face, it would feel very bad if just no damage popped up on your screen. It'd still feel kind of weird to me to see the damage pop up, but like, it makes sense. It just feels better that way. So under check for block, it's just the same thing, guys. If you want to start in the video, I'm not going to commentate over this exactly as I've been doing before. But the only difference is we're basically not checking if the damage target is the owner. We're checking if the spellcaster is the owner, and we're passing the spellcaster's client ID. So that's very important too. The owner client ID is no longer the damage target. It's the person you're prioritizing, right? It's the person you're favoring. The person who processes this effect instantly is the person's client ID you are passing. So whenever you decide who you want to favor in this situation of the damage collider, because you always have to favor somebody, this is what you're going to do. You're just going to choose to search for them if they are the owner, and if not, they're going to return. For melee damage colliders, I also, again, choose to favor the player, because I'm thinking of it in co-op sense. I'm not thinking of it any other way, but in PvP, it might make sense to favor the local player as opposed to whoever's just doing the attack. But that's entirely up to you. Something you need to think about. So I'm going to go and copy everything and set this up. And you can see here now, this is a great example as to why we need to make our damage effects here under one class we inherit from, because we have a function there called apply attack damage modifiers. But you can see in passing a damage effect that works well and good for damage target. But when we do block target, it's not going to accept the blocked damage effect, even though all the values are literally the exact same that it requires, which is just the damage that you're inputting. So we're going to definitely make this derive from a base class momentarily. Okay, I'm going to copy everything for damage target and change this to take blocked instead of take damage. And I'm going so fast, I'm confident I'm probably going to miss something, which is why we're definitely going to do an additional video and test everything in the end. And I'll also probably do a video where we polish and just look for a few rough edges and round those out as well. So I've not been testing this project as much as the earlier stages of it. I do here and there, but it definitely needs a once over. We can just go through some things and look for some broken stuff. So let's go and make a new script called damage effect. And I'm going to make my take damage effect and my take block damage effect inherit from damage effect. And now anything that is a variable that you share in both, just bring it over here. And if you want to take the extra time to do like all the calculation functions too, like for example, you could just have a function that calculates the damage after your armor absorption. That way you can just call that one time instead of having the calculations wrote out on both. You can go ahead and do that. But for the sake of time for this video, to try to get in the stuff that's more client-side prediction related, I'm going to only do what I really need to do. And I'll leave the rest to you, or I can come back to it if you want to see how I do it. Just let me know, obviously. I'm trying to get to the meat of most subjects here now in these episodes, because I know that people have been waiting a long time for some of the stuff that's been requested. So I'm just going to make this protected for the final damage calculation so it can be seen from both classes that inherit from it. And now under check for block, now we should be able to, yes, there's no errors. We pass our damage effect, and because we have the damage values, we're good. And make sure you say notify the server of block damage. And now let's go over to the manual damage glider. So the manual damage glider is just a damage glider. In case you forgot that we set up for AI, we call it manual because we manually drag in the character that's using it. So that's going to work identically to our other damage glider. Well, actually, it will work identical to Dirk's damage glider. Dirk's is different because it has some other stuff that it does. But basically, drag in the character, or rather, reference the character that's causing the damage, and that's going to be true instead of false. So you can leave it blank because it autofills to true. And that's basically it. It's going to work the exact same way. Now, I realize that you probably have a lot more damage gliders than me, maybe if you've been adding to the project over time. So you really got to think about how you want to set each of those damage gliders up and who you want to favor in the situation. Now, in a perfect world, you're going to have a steady connection all the time, but sometimes that's just not going to happen. We've played Souls games where all of a sudden AI teleport like 8 feet to the right or left and you get hit out of nowhere. So it's just kind of the nature of network connections and playing games online. Now, do the same thing for check for block. Make sure you're referencing your block damage and make sure you're putting in the character causing damage and make sure you're referencing the right person as the owner client ID. Remember, it's whoever you are favoring. In this case, I'm favoring the damage target, so that's where I'm being sent from. And now I am going to hop back over to my manual damage glider. What am I looking for here? I'm going to say get blocking dot values because I forgot to insert that, very important, and put all my blocking logic in here. Otherwise, you'll always get a block. So make sure you're checking for the block and not actually just processing it all the time. Make sure you're checking for the block before you apply the damage to, otherwise you'll just skip right to the damage. So under check for block here, under my melee weapon damage glider, I forgot to do the same thing. I'm going to put in my dot values check here. And I'm going to copy all of this like so, and then paste that right in there like that. Alright, that looks good. I think I forgot to do something on Dirk's damage glider. Right, I'm going to change this to damage target, and I forgot. I'm adding the characters to the damage list right here. I shouldn't be doing that. It will add on check for block or damage target. So now we're good. I'm going to save that, and now I think I'm good. That seems to be all the errors. So in the next episode, I'm going to run over all the systems we just made and check to see if anything was left out. But I think that's the core functionality of it. If you want to go give it a whirl, let me know. It's very possible I missed something though, so we'll know in the next episode. And also, I have to sync the HP bar locally as well, because right now, if you go in and try to do this, and you're playing with a very high ping, the HP bar may fluctuate and look a little bit weird, so we're going to adjust that for an instant local reflection of the values. Okay guys, as always, thank you very much for being here. I hope the series continues to be a benefit to you. Thank you for joining me. Have a very lovely weekend, and thank you to my patrons and the people who take the time to leave a like and comment on the video and help it get around. Seriously, it helps so much, you have no idea. I will see you guys next week.